A dog found an injured enemy and alerted its owner. The next moments changed everything. The war had ended 6 months ago. At least, that was what the news channels kept saying. Elias Ward did not fully believe it. He had fought in that war for 9 long years. He had seen cities burn under alien fire. He had seen soldiers disappear in bright flashes of plasma. He had seen too much to believe that peace could arrive so easily. Now he lived alone on the edge of human space, on a quiet colony world called Haven 7. It was a cold planet, wide open fields, frozen rivers, endless skies. Elias liked it that way. No crowds, no noise, no commanders shouting orders in his ear. Just wind and Ranger. Ranger was not an ordinary dog. He had once been a military war dog, genetically enhanced for strength, speed, and battlefield awareness. His senses were sharper than any normal animal. He could detect heartbeats through walls. He could smell blood from miles away. He could sense danger before humans even noticed it. But now, Ranger was older. His fur had gray around the muzzle. His movements were slower. He spent most days lying near the fireplace or walking beside Elias as he repaired fences and cleared snow. They both carried the war inside them. It was late evening when everything changed. A storm was rolling in from the north. The sky was dark purple, and the wind was rising fast. Snow moved across the fields in sharp waves. Elias was inside the cabin, placing more wood into the fire. Ranger suddenly lifted his head. He did not bark. He did not move at first. He just listened. Elias noticed immediately. Ranger only reacted like that when something was wrong. "What is it, boy?" Elias asked quietly. Ranger stood up slowly. His ears were straight. His body was tense. Then came the sound. A distant roar above the clouds. Not thunder. Elias froze. He knew that sound. Atmospheric entry. Something had just broken through the planet's atmosphere. Ranger let out a low growl. The roar grew louder for a few seconds. Then, a bright streak of fire cut across the sky outside the cabin window. Something was falling, fast. A second later, the ground shook. A deep boom echoed across the fields. Snow lifted into the air like dust. Impact. It landed close. Too close. Elias moved quickly. Old training returned instantly. He opened a storage locker near the door and removed a lock case. Inside was a plasma sidearm he had promised himself he would never use again. He checked the charge. Still full. Ranger was already at the door, whining softly but urgently. "Stay close," Elias said. He opened the door. Cold wind hit his face like a wall. Snow whipped around them. In the distance, about half a mile away, smoke was rising into the dark sky. Ranger did not wait for permission this time. He ran. "Ranger!" Elias shouted, but the dog kept going. Elias cursed under his breath and ran after him. The snow was deep, and the wind made it hard to see. But Ranger moved with purpose, cutting through the storm as if he already knew what he would find. When Elias reached the crash site, his heart pounded hard in his chest. A small escape pod had carved a deep scar into the frozen ground. Metal was torn and bent. Sparks flickered along its broken surface. And beside it, something lay in the snow. Tall, thin, armor cracked and damaged, skin glowing faintly under the surface. Varelian. One of them. The enemy. Elias raised his weapon instantly. His breathing became slow and controlled. The Varelians had invaded human space without warning. They had attacked colonies like Haven 7. They had destroyed military fleets with cold precision. They had never shown mercy. And now one of them was here, on his land. Ranger stood near the alien, but he was not attacking. He was not growling anymore. He was sniffing. The alien's armor was broken at the side. Dark violet blood stained the snow beneath it. Steam rose from the wound in the freezing air. It was alive. Barely. The alien's eyes were closed. Its breathing was shallow and uneven. One long hand twitched weakly. Elias stepped closer, weapon aimed directly at its head. He remembered battlefields. He remembered human soldiers falling. He remembered friends who never came home. His finger tightened slightly on the trigger. Ranger suddenly stepped between Elias and the alien. Elias blinked in surprise. "Move, Ranger," he ordered. Ranger did not move. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Elias. Not aggressive, not afraid, just steady. The kind of look he used to give Elias during the war when civilians were nearby. The look that said, not a threat. The alien made a faint sound, a weak, broken breath. Its eyelids flickered open slightly. Its eyes were different from human eyes. Dark, deep, reflective like polished stone. For a second, those alien eyes met Elias's. There was no anger there, no weapon, no movement toward attack, only pain. Elias hesitated. The storm grew stronger around them. If he left the alien here, it would freeze to death within the hour. If he reported it, military command would send a retrieval team. If Varelian ships were nearby, this crash might not be an accident. Too many possibilities, too many risks. Ranger slowly lay down beside the alien, right next to it, providing warmth. The alien's glowing veins flickered faster when the dog touched it, almost like surprise. Elias lowered his weapon slightly. "This is a bad idea," he muttered. He scanned the sky. No visible ships, no drones, just storm clouds. The escape pod was small, no heavy weapons attached. It looked more like a scouting vessel than a military drop pod. The alien tried to move again, but failed. It would not survive the night. Elias stared at it for several long seconds. Then he made a decision he never expected to make. He holstered his weapon. He stepped forward carefully and knelt beside the alien. Up close, he could see the damage clearly. Shrapnel had torn to the side of its armor and into its body. The blood loss was serious. Ranger shifted slightly, watching Elias carefully. "If this thing wakes up and kills me," Elias said quietly to the dog, "I'm blaming you." Ranger's tail gave one small movement against the snow. Elias sighed deeply. He slid his arms under the alien's body. It was lighter than he expected. The armor was warm to the touch, not cold like metal. The alien's breathing changed slightly as he lifted it, but it did not fight. It did not resist. It simply hung there, weak and fading. Elias stood up slowly, carrying the enemy in his arms. The storm swallowed them as they walked back toward the cabin. Behind them, the broken escape pod hissed and sparked in the snow. Above them, hidden behind thick storm clouds, something moved silently in orbit, watching, unseen, unaware that on a frozen field on Haven 7, a simple decision had just changed the future of two species. And it all began because a dog chose not to attack. The storm did not slow down that night. Wind hit the cabin walls hard, making the windows shake. Snow covered the fields in thick white layers. The world outside disappeared under the blizzard. Inside the cabin, the fire burned bright. Elias laid the injured Varelian carefully on the wooden table near the fireplace. Ranger stayed close, watching every movement. His ears were alert, but he did not growl. The alien's armor was cracked open along its side. Violet blood continued to flow slowly from the wound. Elias removed his heavy coat and rolled up his sleeves. He had treated battlefield injuries before, human injuries. Alien biology was different, risky, unknown, but bleeding was bleeding. If he did nothing, the alien would die. He brought out his old medical kit from a metal box under the sink. It had been months since he opened it. He hesitated for only a second. Then he began. Carefully, he cut away the damaged section of armor. The material was strong, but brittle from the crash. Underneath, the alien skin looked almost smooth like stone, but it was soft and warm. The wound was deep. Shrapnel had lodged inside. The alien suddenly jerked. Its eyes snapped open. Elias froze. The alien's dark eyes moved quickly around the room. Its breathing became faster. Weak but alert, Ranger stepped forward slowly. He placed his head gently near the alien's arm. The alien stiffened. Its glowing veins flickered bright blue, then purple. Elias slowly raised one hand, showing it was empty. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said calmly. The alien stared at him. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the alien's eyes shifted down to Ranger. Ranger's tail moved once. Slow, careful. The alien's breathing slowly calmed. Its eyes closed again. Elias let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. "Good boy," he whispered to Ranger. He returned to the wound, using small tools. He carefully removed the pieces of metal lodged inside. The alien's body reacted strangely. Small pulses of light moved under its skin whenever he touched near the injury. After several tense minutes, he managed to pull the last piece out. The bleeding slowed. He cleaned the wound and applied a medical sealant foam. It was designed for humans, but it expanded gently and closed the injury. Now it was only a matter of time. The alien needed rest. Hours passed. The storm outside became even louder. The wind howled across the land like a warning. Elias sat in a chair near the table, watching. Ranger refused to leave the alien's side. Near midnight, something changed. The alien's wrist of ice, cracked but still attached, began to blink with faint light. Elias stood up immediately. A soft mechanical voice came from it. Broken, weak, but working. The alien's eyes opened again. This time, they focused clearly on Elias. The wrist device flickered and then projected a small holographic display into the air. Symbols moved quickly across it. Then the device produced words in rough human language. Location confirmed. Elias felt cold. Confirmed by who? He asked quietly. The alien struggled to speak. Its mouth moved slightly, but the sound was faint and strange. The device translated in broken sentences. Pursuit vessel entering low orbit. Elias walked to the window and pushed aside the curtain. Through gaps in the storm clouds, faint shapes moved in the sky. Large shapes. Too large. His stomach tightened. Varelian ships. They were not here by accident. The alien tried to move but winced in pain. Why are they here? Elias demanded. The device flickered again. Mission terminated. Terminated? Extermination protocol authorized. The words felt heavy in the room. Elias stared at the alien. For who? The alien looked directly at him. For your species. Silence filled the cabin. The only sound was a storm outside. Elias felt anger rise in his chest. But it was controlled anger, the kind that had kept him alive during the war. You're saying they came here to wipe out this colony? Affirmative. Why? The alien's glowing veins pulsed faster. Humanity unpredictable, emotional, unstable variable. Elias almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. So your people decided to solve that problem by killing us? The alien did not respond. Its silence was answer enough. Ranger let out a soft whine. The alien slowly turned its head toward the dog again. Anomaly. The device translated. Elias frowned. What anomaly? The alien lifted one shaking hand and gently touched Ranger's fur. Ranger did not pull away. Bond behavior, non-logical, self-risking, cross-species. Elias understood. The alien was confused by the dog, by loyalty, by mercy. You studied us, Elias said quietly. The alien's eyes shifted back to him. Yes. You weren't military. Scientific observer. Elias stared harder now. You came here to spy. Observe. And now your people want to destroy us. The alien's breathing became slower again. Its energy was fading. Decision made by conclave. Elias stepped away from the table. He ran his hand over his face. He had hoped the war truly ended. But this was something worse. This was silent extinction. No warning. No second chance. Outside, the sky flashed faintly above the clouds. Orbital positioning lights. They were getting ready. How long? Elias asked. The alien paused. Estimated 6 hours. 6 hours until possible planetary attack. Elias looked around his small cabin. His farm. Elias laid the injured Varelian carefully on the wooden table near the fireplace. Ranger stayed close, watching every movement. His ears were alert, but he did not growl. The alien's armor was cracked open along its side. Violet blood continued to flow slowly from the wound. Elias removed his heavy coat and rolled up his sleeves. He had treated battlefield injuries before, human injuries. Alien biology was different, risky, unknown, but bleeding was bleeding. If he did nothing, the alien would die. He brought out his old medical kit, from a metal box onto the sink. It had been months since he opened it. He hesitated for only a second. Then he began. Carefully, he cut away the damaged section of armor. The material was strong, but brittle from the crash. Underneath, the alien skin looked almost smooth like stone, but it was soft and warm. The wound was deep. Shrapnel had lodged inside. The alien suddenly jerked. Its eyes snapped open. Elias froze. The alien's dark eyes moved quickly around the room. Its breathing became faster. Weak but alert, Ranger stepped forward slowly. He placed his head gently near the alien's arm. The alien stiffened. Its glowing veins flickered bright blue, then purple. Elias slowly raised one hand, showing it was empty. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said calmly. The alien stared at him. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the alien's eyes shifted down to Ranger. Ranger's tail moved once. Slow, careful. The alien's breathing slowly calmed. Its eyes closed again. Elias let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. "Good boy," he whispered to Ranger. He returned to the wound. Using small tools, he carefully removed the pieces of metal lodged inside. The alien's body reacted strangely. Small pulses of light moved under its skin whenever he touched near the injury. After several tense minutes, he managed to pull the last piece out. The bleeding slowed. He cleaned the wound and applied a medical sealant foam. It was designed for humans, but it expanded gently and closed the injury. Now it was only a matter of time. The alien needed rest. Hours passed. The storm outside became even louder. The wind howled across the land like a warning. Elias sat in a chair near the table, watching. Ranger refused to leave the alien's side. Near midnight, something changed. The alien's wrist of ice, cracked but still attached, began to blink with faint light. Elias stood up immediately. A soft mechanical voice came from it. Broken, weak, but working. The alien's eyes opened again. This time, they focused clearly on Elias. The wrist device flickered and then projected a small holographic display into the air. Symbols moved quickly across it. Then the device produced words in rough human language. Location confirmed. Elias felt cold. Confirmed by who? He asked quietly. The alien struggled to speak. Its mouth moved slightly, but the sound was faint and strange. The device translated in broken sentences. Pursuit vessel entering low orbit. Elias walked a window and pushed aside the curtain. Through gaps in storm clouds, faint shapes moved in the sky. Large shapes. Too large. His stomach tightened. Varelian ships. They were not here by accident. The alien tried to move but winced in pain. "Why are they here?" Elias demanded. The device flickered again. Mission terminated. Terminated? Extermination protocol authorized. The words felt heavy in the room. Elias stared at the alien. "For who?" The alien looked directly at him. "For your species." Silence filled the cabin. The only sound was a storm outside. Elias felt anger rise in his chest. But it was controlled anger, the kind that had kept him alive during the war. "You're saying they came here to wipe out this colony?" "Affirmative." "Why?" The alien's glowing veins pulsed faster. Humanity unpredictable. Emotional, unstable variable. Elias almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So your people decided to solve that problem by killing us?" The alien did not respond. Its silence was answer enough. Ranger let out a soft whine. The alien slowly turned its head toward the dog again. Anomaly. The device translated. Elias frowned. What anomaly? The alien lifted one shaking hand and gently touched Ranger's fur. Ranger did not pull away. Bond behavior, non-logical, self-risking, cross-species. Elias understood. The alien was confused by the dog, by loyalty, by mercy. "You studied us," Elias said quietly. The alien's eyes shifted back to him. "Yes. You weren't military. Scientific observer." Elias stared harder now. "You came here to spy. Observe. And now your people want to destroy us." The alien's breathing became slower again. Its energy was fading. Decision made by conclave. Elias stepped away from the table. He ran his hand over his face. He had hoped the war truly ended, but this was something worse. This was silent extinction. No warning. No second chance. Outside, the sky flashed faintly above the clouds. Orbital positioning lights. They were getting ready. How long? Elias asked. The alien paused. Estimated 6 hours. 6 hours until possible planetary attack. Elias looked around his small cabin. His farm. His quiet life. Gone in 6 hours. Unless... He moved quickly toward the back of the cabin. Under a loose floor panel near the storage room was something he had buried months ago. Something he promised never to use again. Ranger watched him closely. Elias pulled up the panel. Underneath was a small, sealed transmitter. Military grade. Long range. Old but powerful. He stared at it. He had kept it in case of emergency. This counted. He activated it. The device powered up slowly. A soft beep filled the room. Elias entered a code. Not a government code. Not an official one. A private one. A veteran code. Across Haven, 7. In distant farms and quiet homes, small hidden devices began to wake up. Men and women who had once fought in the war looked at their consoles in shock. The signal meant only one thing. Threat confirmed. Prepare. Back inside the cabin, the alien watched. Its eyes widened slightly. Unauthorized defense network. It translated slowly. Elias looked back at it. You think we didn't prepare? He walked back to the window. Above the storm clouds, more shapes appeared. Varelian ships moving into position. They thought this world was soft. Peaceful. Easy. They did not know Haven. 7 was filled with retired soldiers who never fully trusted silence. The alien's device flickered again. Your probability of survival, low. Elias gave a small smile. Your people said that last time, too. Ranger barked once. Strong. Confident. The alien watched the dog carefully. Why did you save me? It asked through the translator. Elias thought for a moment. Then he answered honestly. Because my dog asked me to. The alien's glowing veins pulsed in patterns the translator did not explain. Outside, high above the planet, energy signatures began to charge. And on the ground, hidden beneath barns, fields, and frozen lakes, old human defense systems powered on quietly. The war was not over. It had only been waiting. And the next 6 hours would decide everything. The storm was still raging over Haven, 7. But now the storm in the sky was more dangerous. High above the planet, dark shapes moved into formation. Varelian warships. Silent, cold, organized. Inside the small cabin, Elias stood near the window, watching faint flashes above the clouds. Ranger sat beside the injured alien, his body pressed gently against it for warmth. The alien, Thessel, was weaker now but conscious. Across the colony world, hidden signals continued to spread. Old soldiers woke up. Retired pilots powered up ships hidden inside storage barns. Defense cannons rose slowly from beneath frozen fields. Under lakes, shield generators hummed to life. Haven, 7 was not just a farming colony. It was a world full of veterans who never believed peace would last. Elias walked back to the table. You said 6 hours, he said quietly. Thescael's wrist device flickered. Correction, 4 hours. Elias nodded once. They moved faster. Yes. Outside, a faint vibration passed through the air. Not thunder. Orbital engines adjusting position. The Varelians were preparing to strike. Thestiael watched Elias carefully. You cannot win direct conflict. Elias gave a small, calm smile. We don't do direct. The alien did not understand that sentence fully, but it would soon. A loud beep came from the transmitter under the floor. Response signals. Dozens of them. Elias knelt and activated the holographic map above the device. Points of light appeared across the continent. Green lights. Veteran units ready. Small ships lifted quietly from hidden launch pads. Old but upgraded. Not military official. Personal. Modified. Unpredictable. The Varelians preferred perfect formation and clean patterns. Humans preferred surprise. Suddenly, the cabin lights flickered. Thescael's device flashed red. Orbital weapon charge detected. Elias looked up. How long? 8 minutes. The first strike. Ranger stood up. He could feel the tension. Across the planet, a message spread through the veteran network. Elias spoke into the transmitter. Scatter pattern delta. No straight lines. No clusters. Short replies came back. Copy. Understood. Let's dance. High above the planet, the Varelian fleet began its attack. A beam of bright white energy shot down from the sky, but it did not hit a city. It struck an empty mountain valley. A test shot, measuring response. Elias watched the light flash in the far distance. They're probing, he said. Thescael's veins glowed faintly. Yes, calculating resistance. Another beam fired, this time toward a power grid. But seconds before impact, a shield activated. The beam scattered across a blue energy dome. Hidden defense grid. The Varelian ships shifted position. Confusion. They had not expected shields on an agricultural colony. In orbit, targeting systems recalculated. On the ground, human ships launched. Not in lines. Not in wings. They launched in random directions. Some flew low through canyons. Some climbed straight up. Some disappeared using short-range microjumps. Varelian targeting systems struggled. Their technology was superior, but their predictions relied on logic. Humans were not logical in war. They were emotional, protective, wild. The first human strike came suddenly. A group of small ships appeared behind one Varelian cruiser, using a microjump maneuver that was considered too unstable for safe use. They fired fast kinetic rounds at close range, not enough to destroy the cruiser, but enough to damage its shield nodes. The cruiser turned sharply to respond. But two more human ships appeared from unexpected angles. The sky above Haven, 7 began to fill with light. Inside the cabin, Elias watched the battle through the holographic map. Red dots and green dots moved rapidly. Some green lights vanished. Elias said nothing. He understood the cost. Thescael watched the map. Your forces disorganized. Looks that way, Elias replied. High casualty probability. Elias's jaw tightened. Maybe. Another explosion flashed across the sky. Ranger moved closer to the window, watching the distant lights. Thescael studied the dog again. Why does it remain calm? The alien asked. Elias looked at Ranger. He trusts me. Even during extinction threat? Yes. The alien's glowing veins pulsed unevenly. Your species' bonds override survival logic. Sometimes, Elias said. A sudden loud rumble shook the cabin. Closer this time. One Varelian destroyer had broken through defensive lines. It lowered altitude, preparing for surface strike. Elias's eyes narrowed. That one's targeting Population Center 3. Thescael checked the data. Correct. Population Center 3 was not a city. It was a farming settlement. Families, children. Elias grabbed the transmitter. Unit Redfall, Vector 270 now. A small human corvette answered instantly. On it, the corvette accelerated directly toward the descending destroyer. No hesitation. No retreat. Thescael watched the intercept path. Collision probability high. Elias did not respond. The corvette fired everything it had at close range. Missiles, railguns, electronic interference bursts. The Varelian destroyer's shields flickered, but the destroyer fired back. The human ship took heavy damage. Its engine failed. It began to fall. For a second, silence filled the cabin. Then, the human corvette's reactor overloaded. A controlled overload. The explosion struck directly against the destroyer's weakened shields. Both ships vanished in a blinding flash. Shock waves rolled across the clouds. The destroyer was gone. Population Center 3 remained untouched. Thescael stared at the fading light. Intentional self-destruction, it said quietly. Elias's voice was steady. They had families there. Survival probability of crew, 0. Yes. The alien was silent for a long time. Above the planet, more Varelian ships hesitated. Human tactics were not efficient. They were not clean, but they were unpredictable and relentless. More hidden defense cannons activated from beneath forests. Energy beams struck at precise weak points. Not random. Studied. Veterans remembered Varelian shield patterns from the war. They adapted. One Varelian cruiser began to retreat. Then another. The Conclave ships were recalculating. Losses were higher than expected. Resistance was stronger than projected. Inside the cabin, Thessael's device began transmitting automatically live data to the fleet. It did not stop it, but it recorded everything. Human pilots protecting civilians, ships sacrificing themselves, defense systems hidden beneath farms, and a former soldier standing in a wooden cabin beside the enemy he had chosen to save. The alien looked at Elias again. Your extinction probability decreasing. Elias gave a tired smile. Good. Ranger suddenly lifted his head sharply. He growled, not at the sky, at something closer. A new sound filled the air. Lower, heavier, different from the others. Thessael's device flashed urgently. Command vessel entering atmosphere. Elias looked up. Through a break in the storm clouds, a massive shadow appeared, larger than the others. Darker. The flagship. If that ship fired its full weapon, Haven 7 would not survive. The room became very quiet. Elias slowly reached for his weapon, not because he could shoot the ship, but because the next minutes would decide everything. Thessael's glowing veins flickered in fast, complex patterns. Conclave observing personally. It translated. Ranger stood tall beside Elias. The biggest ship in the fleet began to charge its main weapon. Energy built slowly, lighting the cloud from within. Elias exhaled slowly. This is it, he said. But Thessael suddenly spoke again. Wait! Its wrist device began to glow brighter than before. Override authority still recognized. Elias turned sharply. What are you doing? Thessael's voice was weak but firm, presenting new data. Above the planet, the flagship paused mid-charge. Its weapon glow flickered. Thessael transmitted everything. The battle, the sacrifices, the unpredictability, the loyalty, the dog. Inside the cabin, Ranger pressed his head gently against Thessael's side. The alien closed its eyes for a brief moment, then finished the transmission. High above, the massive ship remained still, charging or reconsidering. No one knew, and for the first time since the war began, the future of both species hung in complete uncertainty. The sky above Haven 7 was glowing. The Varelian flagship hung in the clouds like a dark mountain. Its main weapon was still charged. White energy burned inside its core, lighting the storm from within. Below, fires burned across the horizon where ships had fallen. Human pilots were still moving, still fighting, still protecting. Inside the small wooden cabin, everything felt quiet compared to the chaos outside. Elias stood near the window. Ranger stood beside him. Thessael lay weak but conscious on the table, its wrist device glowing brighter than ever before. Transmission complete. The device translated softly. Elias did not look away from the sky. And, he asked, there was a long pause. Above the planet, the flagship's weapon glow flickered slightly. Thessael's veins pulsed slowly, then steadied. Conclave reviewing real-time data. It said. The massive ship remained still. No new strikes came. The battle around the planet slowed. Both sides were waiting. In orbit, Varelian commanders were watching the data stream from Thessael's device. They saw human ships breaking formation to shield civilian transports. They saw ground crews manually repairing shield generators while under fire. They saw pilots choosing collision over surrender to protect population centers. And they saw something else, repeatedly, in different camera angles, in different moments. The dog. Ranger standing beside the alien. Ranger guarding the injured enemy. Ranger trusting, unafraid, unwavering. In the Varelian command chamber, probability models began to fail. Human behavior did not match extinction projections. They had predicted fear, collapse, disorganization. Instead, they observed coordinated sacrifice, emotional unity, adaptive strategy. On Haven 7, Elias's transmitter beeped again. Veteran voices came through. We're holding. Losses heavy but stable. They stopped advancing. Elias answered calmly. Maintain distance. No pursuit. He understood something important. If humans push too hard now, it would confirm the Varelians' fear that humans were only violent, only chaotic. They needed to show strength, not aggression. Ranger suddenly moved away from the window. He walked back to Thescael. Slowly, carefully, he rested his head against the alien's uninjured arm. Thescael looked down at the dog. Its glowing veins softened to a calm blue. Why? It asked quietly. Elias turned from the window. Why what? Why does it remain? Elias walked closer. Because you're hurt. You are enemy. Elias shrugged slightly. Right now you're a guest. The alien's breathing slowed. In our doctrine, mercy creates future threat. Maybe, Elias said, but sometimes mercy creates future allies. Above the clouds, the flagship's main weapon powered down slightly. The bright white glow faded to a softer light. Thescael's device chimed. Primary weapon discharged, suspended. Elias felt tension leave his shoulders for the first time in hours. But it was not over yet. The conclave had not spoken. Minutes passed. Then a new signal appeared on the holographic map. A single communication request. Direct, from the flagship. Elias looked at Thescael. Is that normal? No, the alien replied. Elias activated the channel. A tall Varelian figure appeared as a hologram inside the cabin. Its form was sharper, armored in ceremonial plating. Its eyes were colder than Thescael's. Human Elias Ward, the translated voice echoed. Elias stood straight. That's me. You shelter a conclave scientist designated Thescael. Yes. You interfere with extinction protocol. Elias did not look away. You attack my planet. The Varelian paused. Your species was determined to destabilize into galactic equilibrium. Elias gave a small breath of disbelief. Because we care too much? Because you act beyond logical self-preservation. Elias nodded slightly. That's called loyalty. The Varelian hologram shifted its gaze to Ranger. The dog stared back without fear. Thescael spoke weakly from the table. Conclave leader, new assessment required. The hologram turned toward Thescael. You defied directive. I observed anomaly. Thescael answered. Explain. Thescael lifted one shaking hand and placed it gently over Ranger's head. The dog remained still. Cross-species bond. Voluntary risk acceptance. Cooperative aggression limited to defense. Behavioral pattern suggests long-term alliance stability. The conclave leader was silent. Thescael continued. Humans are unpredictable. Yes, but unpredictability is not chaos. It is adaptive resilience. The hologram's eyes narrowed slightly. Your conclusion? Thescael looked at Elias, then at Ranger. Extinction probability of humans now lower than conflict survival probability. Elias did not fully understand calculations, but he understood tone. The conclave leader processed the information. Across orbit, Varelian ships adjusted formation again, not into attack lines, into neutral positions. The hologram spoke slowly. Human Elias Ward. Yeah, you chose to preserve enemy life. Yes, despite high personal risk. Yes, explain motive. Elias looked down at Ranger, then back at the alien leader. Because ending a life is easy. He paused. Living with it isn't. Silence filled the cabin. The storm outside began to weaken. Snow fell more gently now. The conclave leader studied Elias for a long moment. Then it spoke final words. Extinction protocol terminated. Elias's heart pounded once hard. Say that again. Extinction protocol terminated. Varelian fleet withdrawing. Outside in the sky, the massive flagship slowly rotated. Its engines shifted direction. Other ships followed. One by one, the red hostile markers on the holographic map turned yellow, then disappeared. Veteran voices filled the transmitter again. They're pulling back. It's confirmed. They're leaving. Elias closed his eyes briefly. Relief washed over him. Ranger wagged his tail slowly, sensing the change in tension. The The hologram remained for a moment longer. Human Elias Ward, the conclave leader, said, "Yes, your species remains concerning." Elias almost smiled. Fair enough, but no longer scheduled for elimination. The hologram flickered and vanished. The cabin felt suddenly very small and very quiet. Outside, the sky cleared slowly as Varelian ships jumped to faster-than-light travel and disappeared. The war had almost returned, and then it had not. Thescale's body relaxed deeply against the table. "Outcome unexpected," it whispered. Elias pulled a chair closer and sat down heavily. "Welcome to humanity." Ranger carefully climbed up and rested his head on Thescale's chest. The alien hesitated for only a second, then gently placed its hand over the dog's fur. Days later, a single small Varelian diplomatic vessel returned to Haven 7. No weapons charged, no formations, just one ship. Formal contact began, not as enemies, as cautious equals. Historians would later record the Battle of Haven 7 as a turning point, not because of firepower, not because of technology, but because of a choice made in a snowstorm. A soldier who could have pulled a trigger and did not. A scientist who could have remained silent and did not. And a dog who saw no enemy, only someone hurt. In every future Varelian simulation, one variable remained impossible to calculate: human loyalty. And beside it, a dog, standing in the snow, choosing compassion over instinct. That was the moment everything changed. And that was why humanity survived.